this week. So this week saw new equipment being delivered to the Church of Oak Distillery at Ballykelly Mills in Munsterhaven. Now, this is down in County Kildare. This distillery is going to be a big affair. It's 23,000 square feet.
Right.
Of
Okay.
distillery.
Yep.
And it'll have all the usual tasting rooms, exhibition space. It's got a roof garden.
Yeah.
Nice roof garden on top of it.
Okay.
Now, the company behind it is Jewelfield Limited. And Bono from U2 is a shareholder.
Okay.
Yes. So with or without you, it's going ahead, you know.
Yeah, that's why I captioned it whiskey with or without you too. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the whole... Now, there's a bit of a strange thing in this, because whenever you look up to see how much this is going to cost, one person tells you it's costing 50 million, and the other one tells you it's 5. Now, I'm going with the 5 million, because 50 million seems a bit steep. Even Bono wouldn't part. Although, saying that, I suppose...
It looks humongous here, Marty. It looks humongous.
Yeah, but it's a 7-story building.
Right.
Oh, and a 200-year-old mill. So the building's actually there. They're only reconverting it. You know, it's not like they're building it all from scratch. So it used to be a corn mill, just to make corn flour and stuff.
I must admit that swan neck looks absolutely beautiful.
The whole thing looked pretty good now. Now they run into a little bit of bother when they were building it, because they found bats nesting in the roosting, I should say, up in the roof space. So they had to get a special dispensation to carry on so they don't upset the bats. You know, so they're putting in like bat-friendly things at the back of it and all to make sure everything goes all right for them. So yeah.
Could you not suspend a bat in the whiskey bottles like they do with a tequila and the little worm and call it Bat Out of Hell or something like that? There, no.
Yeah, it's you can get that up at the top of it. You know, get all these bat roosting things up there. It'd be pretty cool. Now, Munsterhaven actually have a very long history of distilling. There was a distillery there that ran from 1784 to 1921 by the Cassidy family. Now, it closed in 1921, and the Leinster leader wrote, it is the residents' deepest regret at the closure after 137 years, which made Munsterhaven one of the most prosperous towns in the Midlands. So, yeah, it said that the whiskey from there was fat and creamy. So I'm going to say there probably was some oats in the old mash bills.
Yeah.
And at the time, it said that the spirit was self-spirit or for blending. So it possibly was being shipped over to the state or over to Scotland as well. So yeah, this is a big project. It's going ahead. They had some delays, obviously, with COVID, the same as everything else, but it's coming on with getting it on the way, and hopefully it should be up and running probably by the start of next year.
People are already guessing what's going to be on the show tonight, Marty, which is quite scary. They must be able to read our mind. Either that, or they look on where I post the pictures to make them appear, and then they guess what's coming up in the show tonight.
Possibly.
But they're very, very keen. They're very, very keen to go down a discount supermarket for some reason. They are indeed. They are indeed. I wonder why. But we'll get there. We'll get there tonight. Now, what's next tonight?
Well, one of the things is because this Munsterhaven distillery, the Church of Oak Distillery, is being built, and all these other stills are being installed by the firm Forsyths, who they make stills. They're coppersmiths and all that kind of stuff. Now, they're based over in Moray in Scotland, but they've opened a new branch in North Dublin to go and service the stills that they've been installing all over. So, I mean, Bushmills is Dublin capacity, so they're down there installing that, and they're obviously doing all of that. So, these guys, they're responsible for like household name whiskies, so Glenlivet, Glengrant, Glenfiddich, Woodford Reserve, just to name a few. And on their website, they say they can produce stills between 50 litres and 25,000 litre stills. Now, there's a waiting list for 2 years, but the fact that they've actually expanded over into Ireland and opened up a branch, I personally think that's a really, really good sign. That's the confidence that they have.
It is a good sign. Yeah. Excuse the little fly flying around in front of my face. It is a live show, so if you can see the fly, if you're watching on HD TV, it is not a glitch in the pixels. Okay,
Right.
their logo's quite interesting because is that triple distilled? Is that the 3 Fs there, or is it
No, I don't
dynamic F? It looks like a superhero's logo or something like
Yeah,
that.
to me, it's almost like Nike-esque. It's like sort of Greek god representation or something. It's that kind
Yeah.
of it's a nice logo. But that's the fact that they're opening up in Dublin is quite a nice thing. Now, with the expansion of all of these new distilleries and stuff, for example, West Cork and Lidl.
Right.
That's one of the reasons we've got this open tonight.
Right.
West Cork have run into a little bit of a problem, shall we say, in that they're wanting to open a 24,000 square metre double warehousing in Rosscarbery on the Wild Atlantic Way. Okay?
Oh, this looks lovely. Yeah.
Very nice place. Very
Yeah.
rural, very picturesque, very remote.
Right.
It's a 16 million euro maturation complex. And West Cork are one of these distilleries that they kind of do things for a lot of other people. They're not necessarily screaming out the top of their lungs for themselves.
There's a great podcast called West Cork about the Ian Bailey case and the murder of Sophie Toscan de Plantier. If you want to listen to that West Cork podcast, it's good, and you can catch our podcast too while you're there. It's called Irish Whiskey Review as well. Wherever
we tend to kill less people on the show. No, that there's a Netflix series about that as well. Very good. So Rosscarbery, West Cork employ 120 people now, so they're a big employer.
Right, investing a lot of money in the community, I would imagine. Yeah.
And they've a revenue of 26 million euro a year. That's what they've stated. So I mean, they're a big outfit. They're one of the big players now in Irish whiskey, without necessarily blowing their own horn the way they don't make as much noise as maybe some other people. So they want to build this maturation. If you're producing whiskey, you have to mature it, so it has to go somewhere. But local residents are said to be up in arms because they say that it's rural and doesn't have the infrastructure. Now, 800 people have signed a petition against this. The thing about it is, right, the whiskey goes in there and it sits for a minimum of 3 years. And there's a reason you build it in rural areas.
This looks scary, this stuff.
Pull that up onto full screen.
Okay.
Because this is the angel share fungus, okay? I need to get that. I'd have to try and pronounce this right. This is Bodonia compasiensis, right?
Well, it looks beautiful when you look at it close like that. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad, yeah.
Well, what this does is it eats alcohol. That's what it lives on.
Right.
Okay? So when you have a maturation warehouse, this black fungus appears. Now, it's totally harmless. It eats alcohol, so it basically cleans up the whole place and carries on and does what it does. But the thing is, it can stain buildings, right? So you can't really have it in industrial areas. You can't have it in big areas. So this is Heaven Hills Distillery. I just grabbed this from Wikipedia.
Look what it does. Look what it does to the building. That's scary. That's frightening. Hold on, to blow that up full screen. Wow, that looks like it's a Banksy-style painting on the side of the building.
Well, but that's just the fungus. And it's not doing any harm. It's all it's doing. It just stains the building. If you ever go to any of these whiskey maturation places, you get it. Now, it's perfectly harmless, but you can't have it in built-up areas. And it's not as if there's going to be 240-foot container lorries trundling through this little village every day. Many times you're in Bushmills, how many times do you see 40-foot container lorries?
You see more tour buses than you do 40-foot lorries in Bushmills. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's loads of big sheds like that in Bushmills as well. Yeah.
They're dotted all over the place. You go to Scotland, there's huge numbers of these things. But the thing is, if they build them in rural areas or build them in built-up areas, that staining can appear, and then people complain about that. So you have to sort of build them away certainly from residential areas. So yeah, it's a bit of what they call NIMBYism, not in my backyard.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Lovely
Mm.
stuff. Now, where are we heading next tonight then?
Now, I always love a good environmental story. So this week, Harriet Watt University have said that the DEEP project, the Darnock Environmental Enhancement Project, have delivered the third phase of the project, right? Now, this involved planting 20,000 native oysters in Loch Dornoch. Now,
Wow.
yeah, now you're licking your lips. You're not supposed. These are not for eating, because what happened with there was loads of them there previously, and then greedy wee sods like you came along and munch, ate them all. So
I can just imagine Chef Rob Curley doing something with that lovely moss and the oysters and call it whiskey more ways than one or something like that.
Aye, God knows what Rob would do with it. All those oysters went extinct 100 years ago. They were basically fished out.
Right.
So the work's being funded by Glenmorangie, who are wanting to over to pay for the project and obviously the seed money and so on. And one of the things is they've been working to reduce their environmental impact. And so far, they've put in an anaerobic digestion plant to reduce their organic waste by 95%.
Okay.
Now, oysters filter 200 litres of water each per day. Okay.
Wow.
So that'll take care of the other 5% of their organic waste.
Yes.
Now, by the time this project is finished, they want to have a bed of 4 million oysters in there to get back to what should have been. Now, they're talking about Harriet Watt are doing the assessment to find out about what good that'll do to the environment and reducing, CO2 emissions, because the shells, that's what captures lots of CO2 and to form the calcium carbonate shells and stuff. So it's a nice project. I think it's nice, and I'm not adverse to munching the odd oyster myself. To be honest.
They look lovely. They look lovely indeed. They do indeed look fantastic. But so where we're heading next tonight, then, Marty? Because
we're heading all over the place, Justin.
Are we? Oh, hold on. I feel something divine happening. Are we talking about gin? Are we talking about gin?
You and I we're working the other day.
We're in Lidl, actually. Yes,
we went to Lidl. And there's this poster. It's popped up all over the place. I was in Belfast today, and there was just posters of him all over. There's posters of our Brendan and he's gin. So he's standing there. He's like gin Jesus and the stuff like. So it's Lidl, and it's a Kickstart program. Sponsored by the Northern Ireland Food and Drink Association. In partnership with Lidl.
I mean,
the idea is to help 8 small food and drink producers from the province. So there's Cologne, Morndew, Potchain from Warren Point, and some others to expose their product, get their products onto Lidl shelves. There's 300,000. There's 300,000 customers a week going to Lidl. So it's basically supposed. But I swear to God, it was in Belfast. Everywhere you went, there was just posters of them all over the place.
Hold on to show this video. This video is actually fantastic. Where do we see this here?
From their home in Newry to your home in Newton Abbey, Brendan's Hint Irish Gin, part of the Lidl Kickstart range, putting local suppliers on Lidl shelves across the country. Kickstart, proud to be local.
Whoa, that looks absolutely delicious. You know, I like something like that.
I know you like it. It wouldn't be necessarily my cup of tea. but honestly, I couldn't believe where it was all over the bloody place the day in Belfast. So it was. So it's quite funny. Whenever he's handing out the thing, it's like he's giving communion to people or something. It's funny.
Right, lovely. It's already we're a third of the way into the show. Lots of people watching into well, well into double digits tonight. Remember to comment, like, and share. Tomorrow, it's repeated on Instagram and on LinkedIn as well. And the audio version goes up on Anchor and wherever you get your podcast from. You can ask your smart speaker to play Irish Whiskey Review Podcast, and it's by magic we appear. So, what's next tonight, Marty?
Well, we have a couple of guests on.
Right.
We've two from either side of the pond. Now, they're both a little bit eccentric. One we've chatted to before in the show, but we're getting caught up with. And the other one's Wild Atlantic Distillery, which is a new outfit. So, yeah, we'll get chatting to them.
Okay, here we go. Without further ado, we'll introduce them both. First up tonight, we have from Wild Atlantic Distillery, which, well, is all over the place. First tonight, we have Jim Nash.
Marty and Justy, very welcome to Wild Atlantic Distillery.
How are you, buddy?
I'm brilliant. And I just want to keep along with the theme of the 23,000 square foot and 24,000 square feet. We started with a 24 square foot shed. We're now magnitude of growth 10 times. So if Bono happens to be watching and he doesn't get magnitude of 10 growth in a year, please come and see me and I'll show him how we did it.
Honestly, I mean, you see these massive operations and you just think, wow, they're pumping a lot of money in. Yours didn't really start out like that.
No, definitely not. We were 2018. We were just sitting, myself and my brother-in-law Brian, and we were sitting in the kitchen, and we were coming up with having a wee whiskey and a wee coffee, and just coming up with something to do together as a wee business and stuff like that. So we came up with the crazy idea of distilling, and we went out and bought this beautiful 25-liter copper pot still. And it broke the bank, and we stuck it in the shed, and we spent the next year working on 40, 50 different recipes and teaching ourselves distilling. Now, I'm very fortunate in many ways because Brian's an engineer, and so plumbing up this massive still and getting it all working correctly was easy. And then I had the job of tasting and doing all that kind of stuff. But I think at the start we were more afraid of blowing the shed up and poisoning ourselves with the methylated spirits we were making. And we did 40, 50 recipes. And by the end of the kind of year of experimenting, we thought we had something. So being the guys that we kind of were, somebody told us this fantastic food festival in Donegal, 20,000 people coming over to visit it. And we said, you know what, we'll just load up the van and head down there and put our product in front of people. And it went down very, very well, and we were delighted with ourselves. 30 bottles. We had 30 bottles. We thought this was huge. We were like over the moon. And I was getting ready to do podcasts with 30 bottles, never mind coming on at this stage. And we went from Donegal, came back up here to Ahiarn in County Tyrone, and went out to the back garden, Brian's garden, and we had a look around and said, yeah, you know what, we could put a distillery up here. So we got planning within 2 months, put the shed up and the structure inside of 5 months. Now, to be fair, we had nephews and we had cousins and
slave labor
came in, and myself and Brian.
This sounds like built in the barn in the little house in the prairie.
I'm telling you, Justin. And the good thing about it was that not only we were building the barn and the little house in the prairie, but we were making spirits at the same time. So it was even better. It went from PG up to over 18 in a matter of minutes. And we did all the wiring, the plumbing. What you see behind me, we installed all these stills ourselves. Brian did all the plumbing, the electrics and wiring, and built a lovely barn and the woodworking and everything else. But on a budget that I think Bono would probably spend on a Friday night in Dublin, to be honest with you.
Most people could spend on a Friday night if you're in Temple Bar.
And we're open for tours now since kind of end of June, beginning of July, and it's been going down really well. You know, we've had a great experience. It's been a bit crazy but that's Brian and I. We're just that kind of, just go ahead and do it and have a crack at it. And so far, things have been going really, really well. And we're really, really pleased. We've started whiskey production. So Wild Atlantic Distillery Irish Whiskey has started. But we're doing we're doing everything ourselves. So every product that we have comes from the distillery. Our whiskey, the same thing. It's a bit scary because you're waiting, 3 years, one day minimum, probably 5 years before you guys will even get to see anything. But it's the way we wanted to do it, and we're excited about it, and it's fun. We're passionate about it. We have a great time doing it. When we started in the garden shed, we're both working full time, other jobs and other careers, and it was every evening, every weekend in the shed. Our wives and kids looking for you. Go check the shed. Where we're always in the shed, and it was. You got that passion and that fun and a bit of crack out of it. And I recommend to anybody, you can buy a 2.5 litre still to a 25 litre still and just go into your shed and have a crack. There is nothing better.
See what altitude you can get with a still.
Hold on. We should be in commissions with Forsyth, Marty. We should be in commission.
They get 50 litre stills. I would say if you went to Forsyth and said, "Listen, could you make us a wee 2.5 litre still?" Sorry,
Marty. I tried, and they told me where to go.
I would imagine so. Now you say. You started just experimenting. Obviously, you weren't experimenting with whiskey. You were just
we started off making gin, and we did 40, 50 recipes of the gin and just teaching ourselves and working on it left and right. And this year we won a gold medal for best contemporary Northern Ireland gin, shortlisted for best in the world. We launched vodka just before, Amalfi Lemon vodka, just before Christmas there, and we won 2 bronze at the IWSC. So we might be a bit off the wall, we might be crazy, but we know what we're doing, and we make good quality products, and we do it ourselves. And that's going to be the same with the whiskey as well. A lot of experimentation, but we do it right and we do it proper, and we are passionate about the quality, and we're passionate about the story of Irish whiskey, and particularly in the Northwest where we are. There's a great history going back a long time, and it kind of reminds you of a couple of 100 years ago, and kind of the hedge distilleries and the kind of stuff that went on up the mountains. And you kind of felt, even though we were in the garden shed, it felt a little bit like that when we started. And remember, we used to have we had our rectifier's license, in case anybody's wondering, which meant we could experiment. It wasn't completely illegal. But I remember the local postman used to come up and down the drive, and we used to always pull the blinds, and he didn't know what was going on. And
you just seen the thing shaking like this.
So after about a week of this, instead of the letters going in the letterbox, he came around, knocked on the shed door, and said, "I've got your poster, boys," just so you could have a bloody look at what we're doing. But it was fun, and it's still fun, and we're still passionate about it, and we still love it. Now you can see behind me, the equipment stepped up a little bit. We've got much larger stills, and we've got the ice still for the white spirits and stuff like that. So we've taken it to a different level. But everything else is still there. Brian and I are still as mad as hares, and loving every minute of it. And it's working. Now
you're doing the gin. You're producing whiskey. You're distilling whiskey and laying down whiskey. So what is the mash bills? Is it all single malt stuff, or are you doing pot still, or what you do?
Well, we started with single pot, simply because part of getting this distillery off the ground and everything else. We reached out to friends and families and contacts around the world, and we sold some casks like most distilleries do. And the request of most people when they were investing in a cask was simply, we'd like a single pot still, or a single malt. But we fully intend, part of it as well. We have 1 or 2 that want a pot still. So pot still is definitely, so single malt pot still. And the great thing about the size that we have, we can do crazy things with it, but single malt and pot still, because we'll only be doing it, a certain number of casks, and then we can switch it and move on to something else. So there's loads of experimentation to come, and limited releases and batches, but that kind of, that's what I love. You've got Scott coming on later on, and that kind of innovation from the small distilleries around the world, and particularly in the Irish market now at the moment, north and south of the border, is fantastic. And I love to see, people trying something new and different, and we're the same, and we will be trying loads of different things. Some will work and some won't.
What have you got up your sleeve, Jim, that you're going to try? What are you, and Brian, what are you hoping to try, or do you not want to tell us in case other people get wind of what you're going to do?
Well, we do believe we're about to revolutionize the whole Irish whiskey industry with what we're about to come out with. So I can't tell you that yet, boys, but it's going to be different. So I'll happily come back, in about 5 years and just show it to you. No problem
Right.
at all.
Okay. Now I'm trying to think what are you going to do? Are you going to do it like they do with the wine in Portugal and put it in a reservoir to mature or something like that, or what are you going to do? Because submarines are bound to come into this somewhere.
Well, to be fair, Brian spent a long time in Lanzarote working on. Brian calls them tourism submersible vehicles. I call them holiday submarines. But Brian and I disagree about that. But your basic yellow submarine. So I hear people taking whiskey casks to the upper atmosphere. And
You're putting them under.
It's giving me ideas to take it 100 meters below and see what happens and experiment away with it. Now, I will, of course, be sending Brian down on that because he's a crazy scientist. He's the one who came up with the idea, and I'm going, there you go, Brian. Good luck to you. I'll wait on the surface to go up and sample it when it comes back up again.
I've heard they just send him food down in a tube down the tons of beans.
No, it's good. We're brother-in-laws anyhow, but it's a good business relationship because he is literally the mad scientist in that sense, and I'm the one that's always kind of saying like he would spend forever just refining. Like we might never get out of the shed. You've just got to say enough's enough, and then he'd come back. I remember when we were doing this whole process at the start. I used to dread coming in the morning. He'd say to me, Jim, I was just thinking. I go, God almighty, not again. Because it meant we were tweaking it another little bit. Eventually, we just said, enough's enough. Now we've got the awards. We can kind of say, okay, we've done it right. But the next couple of years in whiskey are going to be nothing but fun because I'm going to hear that every day. I heard it tonight, actually. I came in to sample some stuff. And I was just getting ready for this, and he was going, I've got an idea. And I'm going, oh my God, we're back to this again. But it's good. It's a good way to be,
Yeah.
Like John Dunn has said, is it going to be peaty? Is it going to be peaty? Is that what you're intending doing it? Are you going to have upland bog from the Spurrins or something like that?
No. We are at the end of the day, traditional Irish whiskey and distillery, and I love the kind of work that Fionnán's been doing with other distilleries and the mashes and the things like that. It's fantastic work, and I love all of that, and it's really, really fascinating. So he's given us not given us, but he's kind of tweaked the brain a little bit to say there's so much more you can do, and there's so much history there, and there's so many things you can tweak and mess and do with, and that's what we want to do. Just experiment, but it'll still be Irish whiskey. It'll always be Irish whiskey. We're not looking to be a Scotch whiskey. We're looking to be Irish whiskey. That's what we are, and that's what we're proud to be.
Yeah. Now you have a club. You've started up. People can buy into. We buy into what you're doing already. Yeah,
exactly. When we kind of started, we raised the money with whiskey casks, and that was fantastic. And we've kind of come up as well with a whiskey club, and it includes the 1921 whiskey club. Goes back to the Watt Distillery in Derry. That closed in 1921, and it's 100 years since that. Now, many people weren't aware that that Watt Distillery at the time was the biggest whiskey distillery in the UK and Ireland.
It was huge.
It was massive.
Is that the guy that just shut the doors one day and said clear off to everybody?
He told the unions went out, or when people went out on strike, and he said accept my demands, or what I'm offering you, or go to hell. And he just shut the place, and the whole place closed down in 1921.
People don't realize just how big an industry it was down there. I mean, it was
huge,
distilleries, and it was enormous. And it's just
absolutely
all disappeared, barring one little building. That's basically all that's left.
And literally overnight, Marty and Justin, it just went overnight. It was unbelievable.
Why did you not get the Oompa Loompas in to do it instead?
Well, we are a family distillery. So my kids and Brian's kids love to hear Spotland Day tomorrow, kids. Let's go. So they are our Oompa Loompas at the moment. They get pizza and a mocktail and a few quid, and they love it.
Brilliant. What more could
they
you
love
want?
it to a point. Yeah, they love it when they get here. They hate being dragged out of bed, but they love it when they get here.
Now, I believe you're actually opening for tours. About the past 6 weeks, you're opening certain days for tours, because there's Geraldine Burns saying she's had the tour.
We've been open Fridays and Saturdays now for the last 6 weeks, and they've been going. We've had people from Czech Republic, from Poland, from other parts of Europe, from America, from North and South, and from the UK as well. And it's been really, really educational for us as well. It's been fantastic. A lot of these people that came in here have been to all the big distilleries and everything else. And what we quickly discovered when we're doing the tours with them is they love the intimacy. Like, they come in, they have a drink at the bar, and we take them around, and they get up close and personal with the stills, the equipment, the mash, the fermentation. You know, they hear our story. They can see the shed that we all started it in, and they can see how we've grown in that short space of time. But we're still a small craft distillery. But we're doing some crazy stuff, and we're winning good awards for our products, and we're doing it right. And they love that. And so that, you know, whatever happens in the future, that intimacy and that, you know, up close and personal, and meeting myself and Brian and having a bit of crack, just sitting at the bar and having a drink. You know, some of these tours, they're meant to be an hour and a half. Some of these tours have gone 3.5.
That's what I like to hear. I like to hear that value for money. How do people book them then, Jim? How do people book them?
If you go online to Wild Atlantic Distillery, www.wildatlanticdistillery.ie, you can book a tour there. Now, I don't guarantee you a 3.5-hour tour for now, 1.5-hour tour, but when the mood hits on a Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, we're having a drink at the bar, sometimes it just gets a little bit extended. But I hope my wife and Brian's wife are not watching this, because we're working.
Exactly. This is this is you at work. It's actually overtime, love. I'm actually putting the extra hours in here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
But it's fun. It's enjoyable, and the enthusiasm for the people that come in, and the laugh we have with them, and, you know, the stories they're telling us about what they've been and where they've done in the other distilleries, and it's brilliant. And, you know, that's what Brian and I love. We're people, and we love meeting people and telling the story and having the crack. I was in hospitality for 20 years, had my own bar and a long time in Florida and stuff like that. So I love people. I love having the crack, loving having a drink with them at the bar and stuff like that. And it works, you know. So we're you know.
Now, the 1921 club, what does it entail? What are you getting for joining up, or what?
Well, you get a lifetime membership of the distillery, which means you can pop in and out, you know, as and when you please. You know, just give us a call, come in and out of the distillery. And that, no matter how big we get in the future, that will always be a perk of the thing. You also get the new make spirit, year 1, year 2, year 3 of our first release, which will be the 1921 whiskey. You can only get it through the 1921 Whiskey Club. It'll never go to anybody else or go out any other way except through the 1921 Whiskey Club. So you have all that. You have you enter a draw then for a cask, £10,000 cask of Irish whiskey from Wild Atlantic Distillery as well. So there's lots of added benefits to it. There's you can do a subscription over a number of months, or you can pay direct for it up front. So you get the 2 on 2 a glass with Wild Atlantic Distillery in it as well. You get, you know, the whiskey stones. So it comes in a beautiful presentation box, because what we were looking at was, you know, we had a lot of people, and, you know, when you get casks, I had friends get 4 or 5 guys together, or 4 or 5 husbands and wives and stuff all get together and buying a cask. But there were other people then fascinated by whiskey, or they wanted to give it as a gift. And, you know, that's a kind of steep entry level for somebody who's passionate about whiskey or interested in whiskey as a gift. So this 1921 Whiskey Club is an entry level kind of gift for somebody in your life who's interested and passionate about whiskey. And, you know, you can then access all the other offers and deals and come in and meet myself and Brian and do all that through it. So it's really geared at you're enthusiastic about whiskey, but you want to do it and experience it, and it comes in, you know, at a fair and reasonable price, but you get all the benefits of being in a brand new distillery, you know. Excellent
stuff. The all of your background, you say, is in hospitality and bars and stuff. You were in Florida for a long time.
Yeah, I was in Florida for a good few years, and I had a bar in Florida with a couple of partners out of New York. It's gone now, believe it or not. We used to be called John L. Sullivan's, in a place called Lighthouse Point in just north of Fort Lauderdale, and it was Irish American bar, Irish bar really in Florida. Believe it or not, we won Irish Bar of the Year in Florida in 2005, and it was a great wee place. And,
Sounds lovely. Sounds lovely.
yeah,
John L. Sullivan, the old bare knuckle,
Yeah,
Boston strongman.
Then we had the posters. It was a sports bar and restaurant, and it was, I just love that culture of everybody coming in, and you got to know everybody, and they got to know you. And we people coming back on holiday year and year and year. And the first stop was into John L. Sullivan's. Oh, Jim, you're still here. How you doing? And business going and everything else. It was brilliant, and that's kind of where my passion for it came and stuff like that.
He
and
came
I
and
that.
stayed in Athlone. John L. Sullivan actually came to Athlone, and is it the Prince of Wales Hotel? They have a thing about him up in there.
Yeah.
Is this where they got the idea for the Quiet Man? Is it?
No,
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
No.
John L. Sullivan was the last sort of bare knuckle world champion fighter. And they used to have a thing where you shake the hand that shook the hand that shook the hand of John L. Sullivan. People used to shake his hand, and then they went round the world shaking hands with people.
Yeah,
he was a huge guy. He was huge.
Yeah. No, he was a celebrity before they had celebrities. He was just massive.
Did you ever see the belt that they presented him with? The gold and diamond belt. It's just, my God, unbelievable what they got him.
I've seen pictures of some of the opponents and fights he had. Like, he was a big man in his own right, but sometimes he was up against monsters. But he just had a hand in him, a right hook that would just, once he got you, he floored you. Yeah. And you read all the stories about him. He was just a legend in his own time.
He was.
A lot of people saying very complimentary things here about you tonight. There's Eileen Burns saying, happy to have invested in the 1921 club. Great value, and to be a part of all this. Cheers, Jim and Brian. Book the tour, everyone. It's a great experience. And then Margaret Dolan's saying very much something similar. Very interesting watch. The show's always a very interesting watch. If you want to watch it on YouTube, go to Irish Whiskey Review and hit subscribe, and you can watch all the past shows. There's hundreds of them now, Marty, isn't there?
It just seems like this went on forever.
Now, listen,
Justin,
I'm still waiting on Bono to click in there. You have my number.
Hey, we had Bono's niece on. We have a connection to Bono. We've interviewed his niece, Leah.
And what you actually don't know is that my cousin was married to Bono's cousin. So I actually have met the family at a wedding in 1995, believe it or not. But Bono wasn't there.
Are they still married?
No, they're not married. They're divorced. But
there we go.
I'll tell you a funny story, because my wife's cousin lives in Toronto, and he's a fantastic party planner, but does all the high end stuff.
Okay.
When the pop tour ended in America in the late 90s, he got a phone call from agents for Bono and for U2 to set up the end of tour party in Toronto, and my wife and I flew into Toronto on the weekend that it was all pre-planned.
Oh, yes, I like this.
Yeah,
Go on.
We went in as helpers and it was the disco kind of time. And we went in to set up balloons and talk to the dancers and get them all set up and all that with Michael, of course. It was his business and stuff like that. They never showed up. Paul McGuinness showed up, and we got to meet Paul McGuinness, but we never got to meet Bono and U2 after flying all the way up from New York into Toronto for the weekend just to bloody meet them. Excuse my language, guys. They never showed up.
Right.
No, we won't get Zuckerberg for saying bloody, but you never know.
You get Zuckerberg one time.
we get Zuckerberg once, believe it or not, Jim, for nudity. And where is the nudity in this?
I don't know what Justin was doing below the desk, to be fair.
Listen, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to stand up. Look, I've got my clothes on. I got my clothes on.
You're starting to scare me now, boys.
I don't know. That's what they said. They barred us because there was nudity on the show.
Well, listen, this will scare you. Watch this video here. Let me know what you think. Where do you see this here?
Now a couple of vets on a wild mission. They've got a high flyer and barrels of aged cargo on a special operation. that'll hit 700 miles an hour. It's one of the most extraordinary fighter jets ever built, capable of taking off and landing vertically, hovering like a helicopter. And it packs serious power, top speed, more than 700 miles an hour. It's a Sea Harrier jet, formerly part of the British Royal Navy. The pilot doing the barrel rolls, he's a U.S. Marine.
In its normal mission of fighter reconnaissance or strike, it can carry missiles, it can carry bombs, or it can carry fuel.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Art Knowles says the jet's always been one of his favorites. So much so that he pulled the trigger.
I'd take it.
And bought one.
This actually belongs to myself and my wife. My wife owns half of it, so she's very quick to point that out, that she lets me use her half of the airplane.
Colonel mostly flies it in air shows, but in his next mission, instead of guns, the fighter jet's carrying, well, I'll let the Colonel explain.
We're going to put 2 external fuel tanks on this airplane, one on each side, that have been specially modified to carry 3 oak barrels with bourbon.
Yeah, bourbon, the boozy mission, the brainchild of Colonel Knowles and another vet.
I was talking to Art. He owns a Harrier jet. I own a distillery. I mean, there's the magic right there.
A few miles from the airstrip is this corn farm. It's where retired Navy Rear Admiral Scott Saunders turns the crop into spirits. He's got barrels and barrels of it, even storing some below deck on the USS Constellation in Baltimore Harbor. The rum aging on board this 166-year-old warship got the vets thinking.
I said, hey, we ought to age some here in the Harrier. Let's put some in the drop tanks, and let's go 700 miles an hour and see how the pressure affects the taste of the bourbon in the oak.
This nose cone goes on here. We'll seal them up. We'll have 2 of these fuel tanks, and then we're going to put them on a Harrier jet and fly them up to 15,000 feet.
Why, you ask?
Because it's crazy.
And maybe, they say, maybe the pressure at this altitude might well make the bourbon taste better.
So that liquid's going to push into the wood. It's going to get a lot more flavor out of the bourbon. That's the theory. We'll see what happens.
Testing that theory will not be cheap.
This airplane uses 1.2 gallons per mile. It'll burn a gallon every 2 seconds when I'm in the hover. You cannot pour it out of a 5-gallon bucket as fast as what this engine will convert it into heat, thrust, and noise.
It's very expensive, and my partners would say idiotic.
The Colonel says he's donating his jet and flight time, the Admiral the barrels of booze. And the plan, sell the 700-mile-per-hour bourbon at a price tag of around $145 a bottle.
What this is about is the charity. It's what we're doing it for.
All those sales will go to the Semper Fi Fund.
Semper Fi and America's Fund. That's the nonprofit supporting combat wounded and critically ill members of the armed forces.
I like bourbon, and there's a lot of people that do. And a lot of people that would say, you know what, I get a good bottle of bourbon and I get a good story to tell.
It's a great story, Colonel, and a great cause, too. Incredible. Well, a spokesperson for Maryland's comptroller tells us that the state has cleared the bourbon for takeoff. Unfortunately,
there we go. What do you think of
it.
that? Fantastic.
They'll get it done
They're
in
actually
2021.
going to. They've been on with Shepard Smith. What can you say? Look at that. They're fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. What a fantastic idea. I bet you can't top that, Jim, can you?
Not a chance, Justin. I wouldn't even try.
Well, you're going to meet the man himself. He's live with us now. Good evening. Scott Saunders joins us, former Admiral, retired. You're pretty close to doing this, Scott, aren't you?
We're 2 weeks away from today, Justin. We're getting close. And by the way, I love Jim's story there. What a great thing. I'm heading over to the UK next year. I'll see if I can get to Wild Atlantic Distillery. I love what they're doing. You know, it's similar to what we do. I like the fact you said he was doing 2.5-hour tours. I had to kick my partners out of this space because we were doing an hour and 15 minutes tour. They just finished like 5 minutes ago. And so it went 2.5 hours. So it's one of those things where we're not a big corporate distillery. You know, we don't have to report to Pernod Ricard and some PowerPoint chart every quarter. Hey, we love doing this. It's just what we do. So it's cool. Hey, I salute you, Jim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. And when you do come to visit, it'll be 5-hour tour, let me tell you.
I might be spending the night, Jim. I got this.
You're more than, it wouldn't be the first time that somebody spent the night in the distillery, so you're more than welcome.
Now, Scott, you're 2 weeks away. Now, for anyone who doesn't know about the project, just fill us in on exactly what it is you're going to be doing in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. So, just so you know, the Chinese invented bureaucracy, but the Americans perfected it. So we've got this thing called the Federal Aviation Administration, which controls all flying. I'm coordinating with them. We have this thing. It's kind of what we call alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, but it's really this other thing called taxation, something Bureau TTB, that controls alcohol. And then I have this state of Maryland, and they just get, they just want to make sure we pay tax. So I have 2 federal bureaucracies, 1 state bureaucracy, plus my county government. And I finally got all those things to align. And with COVID, because we've already had to cancel this twice because of COVID, we're going to be taking 2 25-gallon, they're made by Kelvin, wooden barrels. We're putting 2 in a drop tank of a Harrier jet, and there's 2 drop tanks, so there's 4 barrels. And we'll get, so that's 100 gallons. We're going to get airborne, and we're going to go up to about 15,000 feet, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. We're going to get set 3 bourbon aviation world records that day.
Wow.
As if there is bourbon aviation. Is there actually a category of bourbon?
It's a category. I tell you what, I challenge anyone to refute me. So we're gonna, yeah, please. I would like to know who else has done this. So we're going to go to we're going to age bourbon, the highest altitude for aging bourbon in a cask, 15,000 feet. The top airspeed for aging bourbon, 700 miles an hour. And then what's really going to make the difference is the greatest pressure differential for aging bourbon. So we're going to lose, I'm not going to get all the physics of this, but we're going to lose about a half an atmosphere, 6.6 PSI. So up at 15,000 feet, you'll have a half at the atmosphere of pressure on you. So it's going to push everything into the wood.
So it's down to about,
Scott,
about 8 PSI, sorry. Is that right?
Yeah.
What's that again?
Is it down to about 8 PSI? Is that normal?
We're going to lose 6.6. So at sea level, you're 14.7.
Okay.
And then, so I'm speaking in quote English terms. We use PSI. If you're in the EU, you use this millibar BS. So anyways, I won't get kicked off of YouTube.
To be fair, Scott, you can say what you like. You're the one with the jump jet. The fighter jet. I told you before, over here, if we have a 3-inch pen knife, we could do about 3 months in jail. Your mate happens to have a fighter jet just sitting in the garden.
Yeah. Well, and this is, let's get back to the UK. This is the 2nd Sea Harrier ever made. So, and it's the last one that's surviving. So this is a Royal Navy. In fact, if you saw the fin flash on the video clip, it says Royal Navy. Yeah, it's a Royal Navy Sea Harrier. Now, she never saw combat. You were never in there, but she was a test article. She was the first Sea Harrier to fire an AMRAAM, and she's low time, and she mainly does air shows now. It's just a way cool thing to show off.
You know, this is one of the most American things ever. You know, thanks, Admiral.
I mean, it's great American stuff to steal from the British and bring it over here and claim it's us.
There's no way on earth anybody over in the British Isles would have either access or the idea of doing this, because as I say, your fact that my friend down the road happens to have a jump jet, we'll just strap whiskey to the bottom of it and fire it at supersonic speed.
Jim, what did you want to ask Scott?
I was just going to say to Scott that, if he's going to set the bourbon record, but we could do a deal. I'll send him a cask of whiskey, take Irish whiskey up with it. You send me a bourbon cask and I'll take it underwater in the tourism submarine, and you'll have 2 records. And just in case you've problems with the aviation authorities, I have an inn with Letterkenny Airfield. It's grass, but you can get it off the ground.
Yeah, I would love to do that, but that might be another federal agency I have to deal with.
No, you'll just have to deal with the Donegal County Council and Tyrone and Derry and Strabane County Council.
Well, we will wine and dine them. We'll win them over.
You don't have to worry too much about the dining. The whining will probably win them over. Don't. You've got a distillery. You don't have to go much further than that. The booze wins the day all the time. Now, this is happening in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from today, I will be probably not sober because it will have happened by now. Mm-hmm. Where the time on target is a 1 o'clock takeoff, and we have. So you just saw we were on CBS. I have CBS News that's potentially coming down for the flight, and they said, "Well, how long is it going to take?" And I said, "What? About 20 minutes." I said, "A Sea Harrier takes off with a low fuel light on." I said, "It's this thing burns gas so fast you can't believe it."
Yeah, it does. Is it a mile to a gallon? Is it even less than that?
Is it? What is that a gallon?
1 mile to a gallon of fuel.
Oh, it's less than it's idiotic. It's like asking, "Hey, how much I'll get back to Jim. How much does Bono spend on dinner?" You don't want to ask because it doesn't make sense. Yeah. You wouldn't understand, Marty. It's idiotic.
See, Justin might understand. Justin would understand that. Justin. I wouldn't understand. Justin's the guy with the sports car and all. I don't have anyone.
Listen, can I ask you? You're saying about the bureaucracy. Wasn't there a famous American admiral that somebody said, if you want to win the war, shoot this American admiral because he was leaving the lights on the eastern seaboard, and the German submarines could see the shadows of ships going down the coast. Is that true, Scott? Have you heard of that one before? Have you?
I haven't heard of that, but I'm going to have to look that up, Justin, because I love the history thing. I will tell you, you might not have heard of him. He was a colonel during the 7 Years' War, of which we call the French and Indian War, a guy named George Washington. He said, "We need more whiskey for my troops to fight the British." And thank God we made more whiskey for them.
To be fair, it was the Scots-Irish made the whiskey.
The Scots-Irish were doing it. So thank you very much, Marty.
No problem. No need to thank me. I didn't do it personally, but no need to thank us. Now, when this whiskey comes back to terra firma again, you're not obviously bottling it straight away, are you? Is it being bottled straight away or being?
No, it's so again, I've got federal bureaucracies. So we're going to download the drop tanks. We're going to we bring them back to the distillery that day because this is a Maryland requirement. I have to take off and land in Maryland, and I can't go into Virginia airspace. So just try to comprehend that. So it'll take because of the pressure, I'm going to give it some time to come back to seep out of the staves. And then 2, we're engraving every bottle. And we think we're going to get about 600 bottles, 100 gallons at 90 proof. So it's going to take some time. And every bottle, I don't know if you could, this is a little helmet bag. So, if we were owned by Pernod Ricard or one of those very nice fancy places, we'd have a box and stuff. But we're going to put our bourbon in a helmet bag because that's what pilots have. It's nice and thick. And then we're also going to have a little card in here that talks about the aircraft. It's going to talk about the history, and it's also going to have a little QR code because in the cockpit we fitted last week a camera, a 3D camera, so that you're going to have virtual reality from the flight. So when you scan the QR code, you're going to be on the flight when we flew the Bourbon.
Wow. No, we are going to try and stream this live for you if we can get the feed. We are going to try and stream it live on our channel as well, but it looks absolutely fantastic. Julie Mason says she loves the helmet bag sort of thing. Do you know, I almost think, Admiral Saunders, that you and your team remind me of the A team. You know, the A team with George Peppard, and you even look a bit like George Peppard. Don't take that the wrong way, but I loved that show when I was a kid.
Oh, it's brilliant. That was just class.
And
so we have three partners. Jim, I know he is at least one. So we have a great confluence of capabilities. So Sean, he's a United States Marine. And one thing about Marines, they've never met a regulation they don't want to understand. So he understands the U.S. code about distilling to the T. So as Dan and I say, our master distiller, Sean keeps us out of jail. So Sean's the one who got us this permit to fly. And then Dan, he's been distilling for over 40 years. So he had a license to distill corn into ethanol during the fuel crisis of the late 70s.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So he's been distilling for a long time. So he's got the chemistry. He understands it all, and it all just works out perfectly.
Dan's got an engineering background, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jim will understand. We have 100-gallon still. I have more telemetry and PID controllers than the space shuttle when that thing went on.
Hey,
God, Sean. Dan. He used to design telemetry for space launch vehicles. And Sean and I go, do we really need that? But it works.
Now, Dan, just to put this into context, Dan used to work for NASA. He did project for NASA, correct? Yeah.
Dan has put vehicles into space.
Wow.
So what you have here is what we have tonight, Justin, is we have a guy who was trying to launch a 25-litre still from Ireland into space. we have an admiral who's launching it halfway between here and space, and we have a guy who's actually put stuff in space.
No, I don't want to scare you, but actually my sister's mother-in-law, she actually worked for Rotodyne, which was at the forefront of rocket technology in the 1960s, because she lived and worked in America. So my sister's mother-in-law has put things in space as well. So I don't know what that says about them. But Jim had a question. What was your question, Jim?
No, I was just going to say that, with the military background and everything else, it's a very similar story here. Because I spent 2 summers with the FCA in County Clare, which is like the National Guard, Dad's Army version of the National Guard, and
I've drunk as much whiskey as is humanly possible.
Yeah, but I think those 2 summers of guarding the Hinch from invasion by America in those summers in the late 90s, I think we were trying to protect it from American golfers.
You never know when John Paul Jones's grandson is coming back.
Yeah, that's true.
The Taliban and being Skibbereen.
Don't mention the Taliban. We will get Zuckerberg.
No, because I know when Scott would have arrived with his troops, it would have been very simple because the largest bar in Lahinch surrounded. You had us all.
Now, someone asked the question: the supersonic bourbon. Can we buy any of this? Can I buy a bottle of it?
No. So here's what we've done. So this has been delayed twice because of COVID. So, and I say no because probably no. We've had 2 delays, and I've taken pre-orders. So maybe we'll get 600 bottles. We'll see how much leaks. So Dan and Sean go, hey, do you think it's going to leak? I'm like, oh, hell yes, it's going to leak. We're going to 10,000 feet, you numbskulls. And so it will probably have two. I don't know. Anyways, we'll see what we get. Now, again, get into the legal nonsense of the United States. They're going to have to buy it in Maryland. So once I have 800 people who want to buy this, but some of those don't live here. La-di-da-di-da. We'll see what happens out there. And it's $145 a bottle. Several people said, "Hey, you can charge more for that." I was like, "No, this is priced so that a gunny sergeant in the United States Marine Corps can buy this thing. Yeah, it's expensive, but it's not. It's not way too expensive. And it's to put it in EU language, it's 180 euros or something. I don't know.
Now, it is for charity.
It's what?
It's for charity.
Oh yeah. The flight we're donating. This is I think Art's wife and my wife are all like, what the hell are you guys doing? I was like, It's just like the thing we do on the Constellation. That was a charity thing. And Marty, you and Jeff didn't see. I don't know if you saw the thing we did with the helicopter.
We did.
Bourbon tops. Yeah. You were part on St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, we were.
Yeah. Marty was our leprechaun.
Yeah, you didn't recognize him dressed up as a leprechaun.
I did. I forgot about Marty. He was up there on St. Patrick's Mountain.
I was on Slimmy's dancing and getting on.
Yeah. So we do a lot of stuff for charity. We like having fun. It's just like Jim does. I mean, what a cool distillery Jim has. That is just awesome. We're kind of kindred spirits, just on the other side of the Atlantic.
Exactly, Scott. And I've got to hold my hat out to you. I love what you're doing, and I admire so much what you're about, and that kind of craft, and it's brilliant, and I love to see it, and it's a fantastic story, and my hat's off to you, because it's just really impressive. It's a great story, and it's everything you're doing is just spectacular. It's brilliant. I love it. Absolutely love it.
I think the Irish version of the 700 mile is what you should do is get a couple of casks in the boot of the car and do like 70 mile an hour up the motorway.
Well, actually, William McLennan said, what about we put a cask on a guider and send it down Craigantlet Hills? Craigantlet is one of the famous places where they do car hill climbs, Scott and Jim, and a guider is like a pram wheels, and you would
the Irish version.
That would be the Irish version. Yeah. Listen, it's been fantastic, guys.
I've run over.
I was going to let you know before I go. I know Marty has his Glencairn glass there because that's just the way he is.
Yeah.
And we have Glencairn. We get our Glencairn glasses from Scotland because they're so good. But I did want to show you. This is an American glass. So see that? That's a United States Marine Corps emblem on there.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yes.
And then you see that thing on there? So that's a bullet that's in the glass. It's from a company called Ben Shot. So it's a great veteran company because the guy has been shot. So we get our glasses from him. They don't work the same way as a Glencairn, but boy, does it taste good when you're drinking out of it.
Well, to be fair, again, you've just upped the Americanness of all this stuff. There's a bullet in your glass. I'll bring
it back to the Tua glass, which is the Irish version of the Irish whiskey glass, which is a beautiful glass as well, Scott. And one day I'll get one of those bullet glasses, and I'll give you one of these in return for the Tua glass.
We'll definitely do it, Jim.
Absolutely.
Now, honestly, guys, it's just fantastic talking to the pair of you. We've overrun again. I knew we would do. Now,
hey, Marty, can I ask you a question? So, when are you coming out with your whiskey Bitcoin? Because I know that's been on your mind.
Listen. Did you see the thing about the guy who got hacked? Some guy hacked the Bitcoin. One of the things. And he stole 600 million. I would need Justin's money. for the 600 million.
So the other thing I wanted to mention tonight, because you guys are so great, Grace O'Reilly of Waterford.
I know you have a
Marty,
soft spot
I know
for
you
Grace.
chuckle every time you say crop walker, but what a wonderful lady she is.
I cannot say
She's a crop plucker. So if I turn my camera around, you would see our cornfield. That's our 2027 bourbon crop. Because we grow it right here, 100 feet from where I'm sitting right now. That's what we grow it right here. And what we do is we kind of follow what Grace does. We don't put, this is not commodity corn. Because if we were growing this like real corn farmers, we get 220 bushels an acre. We get about 110 or 120 because we don't put as much, in farmer speak, NPK, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Yeah. And so because you don't put as much nitrogen on, you get more of what you're really looking for. Because you're not looking for the protein in there. No. You're looking for the stuff that makes sugar. Yeah, and so the protein, that's what feeds cattle and chickens. We don't care about that. We're making bourbon. So we're worried about starches. And I tell you what, Grace, what a wonderful woman, lady. She's young enough to be my daughter. Oh my God.
Honestly, you see, whenever we talked to her for about an hour and a half, and we broadcast about 20 minutes and half an hour interview. She's hilariously funny off camera. Whenever she was just talking, she was just really, really good crack. She's just a great girl.
If I get to Ireland, I'm going crop walking with her.
You behave yourself.
It'll be like the advert for that cheese. That cheese. Have you seen that advert? Le Tracteur.
No, she's just. I've seen the advertisement. She's so good. She talks about the story. It's all about We're a single farm bourbon distillery. They do single farm whiskey. It's awesome.
Honestly. When you're talking to her, she is so knowledgeable about what she does. She's so passionate about what she does. I mean,
she's very educated.
The whiskey's one thing, but she's really, really sharp on everything that she's talking about. And for Mark Rainier to pick her up, he knows what he's doing. That guy. Lots of people.
Well, you can't read it, but it's right over here.
Amazing.
That little sign. We have a sign up on our bar.
Yep.
It has, because we release by the batch, the bourbon we make. So we have when we planted the corn, when we harvested the corn, when we barreled the whiskey, the bourbon, and when we released it. So it's nobody else does that. I mean, nobody else has the DNA trail on that.
Yeah.
And people like understanding that.
They do. And in 2 weeks' time, when you're doing your launch, me and Justin want to be there. We want to be there, and virtually and in spirit, because I've been watching. Me and you have talked numerous times about various things, but I just love the whole. It's just bonkers. It is honestly about the most American thing I've ever heard in my life.
We'll have you there. In fact, we'll have you on before the Harrier taxis out, so you'll be able to see the Harrier out on the flight line.
And we'll broadcast it over, because I know loads of people will be watching it. They just want to watch this and just to see the whole thing. And I can't wait. It's brilliant.
I look forward to it, Admiral, because I've actually I did a TV show at a disused Air Force base where they have a private 2-person Harrier, the big black one that you maybe have seen at times, and I've seen it up close, and it is some job. And I've also seen the Harrier at the air shows here as well, and it's plain as in fact the prototyping for the Seahawk Sea Harrier was actually done in Belfast at Short Brothers, because actually a friend of my grandfather was one of the scientists that came over here to work for Shorts to do it. But a lot of people think it was done in Brough in England, which you also know. But really, really, really looking forward to it in 2 weeks' time. We'll certainly be carrying it. Marty, it's been great. Jim's been great. The Admiral's been great. It's just good stuff. Listen, keep the stills burning. All right,
guys. We'll talk to you again.
Guys,
thank you, Marty. Thank you, Justin. Nice meeting you, Jim.
You too, Scott. Look forward to seeing you in Wild Atlantic Distillery.
I'll be there. So, what you don't know is, when I was an admiral, I knew a lot of British admirals. So, I have a friend who's I don't know what he's got some highfalutin thing. He's a gentleman usher to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. You might have heard of her. So, anyways, I'm gonna be there next year for Ascot.
Lovely.
wow.
Oh,
Wow.
That's
listen,
very nice.
listen. I've been to Royal Ascot twice. It's fantastic. It is utterly, totally fantastic. It is a sight to
Justin,
behold.
see-
The whole pomp and ceremony and all the rest of it.
You see, Jim, you'll understand this. I've been to the few pointy point races not too far away from here, where you just go and get drunk and spend about £40 on stuff on horses that you wouldn't even be good enough to make glue. Justin, he gets the Royal Ascot.
I
That's
know.
the difference, you see, guys.
Donkey-
That's the
Yeah.
difference.
I go to Donkey
my
Derby.
wife goes,
you know?
I don't want to get a fascinator. I said, you don't understand, honey. We're going to the royal area. You have to wear a hat. You're not allowed to wear a fascinator in the royal area. That's how highfalutin these people are.
I'm going to give you a wee hint here, Scott. Just a
And
tip
don't
before
tell
you
them
go.
you're American. They'll kick us out.
No, you'll be all right. You'll be all right with the American. Just don't walk in with a glass with a bullet in it. Okay.
No, that would not work. That would not work. Actually, you wouldn't get through the metal detectors if you tried that. The SAS would swoop. Listen, good night, everybody. Good night.